All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session. This is a webinar session from the Ontario Risk and Insurance Management Society, the Rising Risk Professional Network. We welcome you today to talk about how to thrive in the modern day office era. We have three special speakers from various parts of the industry that are going to be highlighted in the call today. We're going to start with the land acknowledgement and then some housekeeping items and the agenda. I begin by acknowledging that I live and work on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, with the lands governed by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant. I am in the city of Hamilton. This agreement reminds us of our shared responsibility to care for the land and for each other. In today's conversations, as we explore the future of hybrid work and in-office presence, it's important to recognize that the land that we occupy is not neutral. It carries histories, relationships, and responsibilities. Indigenous communities have long practiced forms of connection and adaptability that can inform how we build inclusive and resilient environments at home and at work today. This acknowledgement is not just a gesture, it's a commitment to listen, learn, and act in ways that honor Indigenous presence and leadership, both in physical and the evolving digital landscape. A couple of housekeeping items before we start. The session today is being recorded. It will be made available for everyone that's here today via YouTube. So if you'd like to take a look at the session or share with someone you know, you can go onto YouTube to the OMRIMS page and search for this recording. There is a Q&A feature on Zoom, and you can use that to enter your questions. The questions will be shared with the panel at the end of the call. Okay. And then last housekeeping item, the speakers here today are participating on a personal capacity. So though they have a long history in the industry and they're actively working in different organizations, they are here on a personal capacity and their opinions are their own. So after this slide, we'll share a poll with you. We'll also introduce our speakers for today and start their sessions, and then we'll have some time for the Q&A. So please go ahead and interact with the Q&A panel. You'll find that at the top of your screen under the three dots, under the More section. You can open the Q&A and start entering your questions. So let's start with a quick poll.
Okay, the poll has been launched. How often do you go into your office headquarters today? Just to gauge an understanding of the audience. I'll leave this up for about 30 seconds and I'll share the results with everyone. All right, majority have voted and let's share the results. Okay, so 100% said 2 to 3 days a week.
Unanimous.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Okay, we have one more poll to share. Let's see if there we go. What's your preferred way to connect with colleagues? So in-person conversations, video calls, chat platforms, or email? All right. We got majority 90% have participated. Let me share the results. Okay, so majority is chat platforms like Teams, but in-person conversations does follow. So I'll stop sharing and pass it over
Okay.
to Livia.
Thank you for participating on the poll. That's pretty neat to see. Yeah, I think a lot of us are connecting via chat nowadays, and that's a great tool to use, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the speakers today. We have Candice Huron. She is the Claims Management Manager at Toronto Hydro. We have Andrew Hosey, who is the Senior Vice President, National Sales and Practices National Leader for Canada and Caribbean at Gallagher. And then we have Rebecca O'Connor, who's the Senior Vice President, Ontario and Atlantic Region Leader at Liberty Mutual Canada. So a little bit more about Candice. Candice is a passionate insurance and risk management leader with over a decade of experience driving operational excellence and strategic claims oversight in the utility and insurance sectors. Currently serving as manager of claims management at Toronto Hydro, Candice leads the insurance claims program. She is the founder and currently co-chair of the ORIM's Rising Risk Professionals Committee, which is the only RIMS Rising Risk Professional Network in Canada. Today, Candice will be speaking to you about connection and collaboration in the modern office era. So over to you, Candice.
Thanks, Livia, and hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be part of this webinar today and to talk about connection, collaboration, and essentially why I'm excited to talk about this is because I have been at my organization for coming up to 8 years. So I was there in office 5 days. I went through COVID where we were home the whole time. And now we're just going back to the office 3 days, as most of you, all of you on the call are. And so I know for myself throughout time, there were lots of ups and downs, I would say, of how I felt I was connecting to my work, to people, and also collaborating. And I think that still continues, even though we are hybrid and in office and virtual. There's different challenges for being in person and not. And I think technology that's coming up, my team recently got Teams versus WebEx. And so I'm still learning on ways to collaborate. And so I'm excited to speak about this topic. Next slide, please. Okay, when I think of connection and collaboration, first I was thinking team, and I know in the webinar invite, I will focus on team for sure. But as I was doing the presentation, I started thinking about, my gosh, like when I'm thinking about how I'm feeling and how I'm connecting, I know that it's more than just about team. It's more than just about people, and there's, the work, the industry, community. And so I kind of broadened my scope a little bit to talk about connection on a few different platforms. But if you can just go to the next slide. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this slide, and I wanted to come here and really think about, okay, what are ways to connect and collaborate consistently? If some of us on this call, they might have started during COVID and they are only used to not being in person, and now they're going back into the office. And I think that there are a lot of challenges that people face to connect when you're in a different environment, or if you've never done it. And some people have only worked in office other than COVID. And so there may be different challenges for those people. So I tried to incorporate a few tips that have helped me be consistent throughout time, no matter where I was working. And I also think that it's not as easy as it sounds to always be very connected and engaged and be collaborating with people that have different styles and different generations and different ages and different diversity. So it can be a challenge, and I just want everyone to recognize, I guess, that it is all of our challenge. We face this together every day. But for my tips, I did start with self because I felt like, especially during COVID, when you're at home, or if I'm home too many days, there is a bit of disconnect that I feel happens, at least for me. And so my tips for connecting and collaborating with self is really just about learning what energizes you and what drains you. And so some things for me virtually, like if I have 6 meetings in a day, I know I'm going to be extremely drained depending on what types of meetings. And so knowing how I can plan my day, and knowing what energizes me or drains me has been very helpful to me, because I would just say yes to everything. And knowing yourself, you can actually plan better for yourself so you can get better connection in the meetings and with your coworkers. Um, that brings me to my next few points, which is being mindful about your schedule and building room in for reflection. I know some days are just crazy. And by the end of the day, you're like, whoa, I did so many things. I have all these notes on this page. And I don't really haven't built enough time in to connect to what I was actually doing and the actions that I might have from those notes. And I don't really build that into my schedule, but now I've started to do that, and that has helped me keep up to pace with my collaboration efforts. So I'm not going into another meeting and somebody saying, "Oh, well, we were supposed to do that from last meeting," or nobody even knows what we're doing. So having a system for yourself and a plan for yourself, and then the tools. I mean, for me, I'm learning about tools. I'm not that tech savvy, but I'm going beyond job aids, so learning about tools, finding people who use them really effectively, talking to people, and then teaching yourself and really making it a point. Because wherever you go, if you go to another organization, or from claims to insurance risk management or enterprise risk management, you're with you. So you will still keep those tools. The next area I'm going to focus on is tips for connecting and collaborating with people. And of course, at least for me, my favorite part of work is the people and my team members who I get to talk to every single day. And so I do make a point of talking to people every day. And in COVID, sometimes you could go a couple of days without talking to anybody other than through email. So I know for my team, I do encourage that face to face. So depending on the type of meeting or situation, if we're virtual, we do like to turn on our cameras, but not always, recognizing there are times when you don't want to, and that's okay. But face to face. So if I'm going to meet with somebody and I've never met them, or it's a tough conversation or there's confusion, I'm always going to go to face to face. I'm going to say, okay, well, we're in office Wednesday. I want to talk to you face to face. You just get way more out of the conversation. Um, for connecting and collaborating with teams, I know it worked really well during COVID. We did a lot of team like mini interactions or team building games, and I felt like that helped keep the team spirit up, and people connected even when we were so far away. And so we do continue that on in person too, and it just gives you a different time with your team to connect that's away from the business, which I think is very important. Connecting through email. I know everyone's probably got emails sometimes where they're like, whoa, this person seems upset or angry. And so I think everyone is so busy, and I've done this myself, where I read an email and think, oh my gosh, like that is not a tone of somebody who wants to move something forward and work towards a goal and build trust. And so, since connection is about building trust and collaborating, working together, definitely think about your emails. Like, take a pause before you send them and try to work on that friendly tone. Um, Recognize wins, lessons learned, and other efforts. So celebrate with people. I feel like we work on so many little projects, and I know for my team at work, we do a weekly team meeting, and part of it is just round table of celebrating wins or sharing lessons learned and efforts, and everybody has a voice in the room. So it's a really nice way to be proud of what all the hard work that you're doing. And knowing collaboration tools, when to use them. Like I said, join with somebody, work as a team, figure out like what works for you. For a period, my team had multiple tools. We were between tools, and it was just a lot on our day to day to keep all these tools open. And so now certain tasks we decide up front. This is how we're going to collaborate. This is how we're going to use Teams. This is how we're going to share documents. And we're still discovering ways, and so it's an ongoing conversation. The other tips that I brought to share today, I know the other presenters are going to speak more in depth about some of these things, but I wanted to recognize that it's important to connect like yourself to be connected to the work that you're doing, and to what's going on. And I felt everyone feels certain things. You know what it feels like to be disconnected from someone or something, and it could be because as a whole, yourself, the people, the work, the organization or industry, maybe there's disconnections between multiple areas, and that's why you're not connected to the work. So there are reasons why, and I've felt this too in the last few years, and that's actually why I got involved in the industry and Ontario Risk and Insurance Management Society, because I felt like I was connecting to people for sure, the work, but there was something that I just didn't feel connected outside of my team or organization. And so I think that's where I'll focus my last couple of minutes. I did give some tips to connect to work and to connect to your organization. But in terms of the industry, if you feel, that you are in a silo, which I think does happen a lot, or it could be within your organization or within your teams or division or workplace. But if you feel like you're in a silo, or you feel like, okay, I've been able to connect and collaborate effectively here, but I want to go beyond that, or I need something newer in my life to work on. I feel like everything's good at the workplace, and I want to get involved and meet other people. So that would be industry, and I'd be happy if anyone on this call wants to chat about ways to get involved in the industry. But I can tell you from my personal experience, I did feel very siloed, like I had my own thing and I didn't really know the landscape outside of that. And so I've been volunteering for a few years now, with different industry groups, and it's really helped me meet so many new people and just find ways to collaborate. For instance, this webinar is a collaboration, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel really connected to the industry itself and the people in it. So you can join an industry group like ORIMS if you're not a member. That's an option. But also through volunteering. So this is put on by ORIMS Rising Risk Professional Network. There's 22 volunteers in the network right now, and every year we recruit for whoever wants to volunteer. But there are lots of opportunities. For industry, taking advantage of networking and professional development opportunities. So your workplace may have some. You might know of Insurance Institute but ORIMS, and there are quite a few different groups that do have these opportunities for you to either socialize and meet other people or work on professional development things. And for me, I feel like that's a really important, when I'm in a social event, and especially over time, as you get to know more people, you feel very comfortable and you feel like you're really part of the industry, and the industry is such a vibrant one with so many different types of people, and we have a lot of people in the industry, so it's a really nice way to connect to outside of your work, but also to the work and the point of insurance, and risk management. The last point I'm going to talk about is the contribute to the community while collaborating with others. So this is in line with the volunteer work, but I mean, if you're someone that likes to write or likes to make like YouTube videos on certain topics, and you really passionate about insurance, there are outlets for that. And if you're someone that wants to work on a certain project, like as you become part of the industry community, you can really find different ways to collaborate with others in the community. And I've never met anyone who was not nice at an industry event, and so it's really nice to meet people and collaborate on things. And there are lots of opportunities. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're interested or you're looking for a connection or collaboration in that way. Thanks, Livia. I think that's my time, so I'm going to pass it on.
Thank you, Candice. I think a key takeaway for me from what you have talked about, and I think it's a theme that we're going to hear from everyone. It's the being mindful and being intentional. with your efforts, right? In the office, hybrid, wherever it may be. Um, but you also mentioned about learning when to say yes. And I think that's very important when you're growing in the industry, to kind of think about where do you want your career to take you? What opportunities are you saying yes to? And you're not just saying yes to everything, because we tend to do that when we're um, starting in the industry, right? And trying to take on all these new kinds of opportunities that we can, but try to be mindful and intentional about it. Okay, so our next speaker is someone who I know very well, Andrew Hosey. Andrew is the Senior Vice President in National Sales and practices National Leader for Canada and Caribbean at Gallagher. I know him well because I used to report to him. He's my previous boss. So Andrew began his career at a large global insurance broker in 2001, and he was appointed as their Canadian Risk Assessment Practice Leader in 2005. And in 2010, he became National Growth Leader for their National Risk Consulting Division that included ERM, Risk Control, Fleet Risk, and BCM. In 2013, Andrew joined another international brokerage to form their risk management services practice. Andrew joined Gallagher in 2018 as the VP for Strategic Growth and was appointed Senior Vice President, National Sales and Industry Practices Leader in July of 2024. Andrew has a bachelor's degree in risk management from Glasgow Caledonian University and his fellowship from the International Institute of Risk Management. From 2016 to 2023, Andrew instructed the Canadian Risk Management, the CRM program, as part of the University of Toronto's School of Continuing Studies. So over to you, Andrew.
What you're really saying there, Livia, is I'm a risk management geek. I think that's really
Yes.
what you conveyed.
That's
Thank you for having me. When
thumbs it up.
Livia calls, I always answer, so that's great. Livia set me up really, really nicely to talk about three things, all within this sort of hybrid environment as we see. And I think universally, all of you are 2 to 3 days. So we're going to talk about how to meet others in a hybrid environment, how to connect intentionally in a hybrid environment, and some of the challenges that you might face, and certainly I have faced, particularly in COVID, and maybe even not separating how I have come out of COVID, and I'm still, dare I say it, keeping the same hours. So I'm going to start with how to meet others. So networking in a hybrid environment setting, we forget how nice humans are. We forget that we shouldn't be hiding behind a laptop or a computer screen. Rebecca and I know each other very, very well, and I've actually presented to her underwriters that getting in front of clients, getting in front of individuals is actually key now. That's what differentiates us, because if we hide behind a screen all the time, we're just one of the pack. We're the same. So you've got to make a strategy. Who do you want to meet? Why do you want to meet with them? When are you going to meet with them? How often are you going to meet with them? And really just recognize that it's nice to get out. And even if that's in the office, don't just sit at your desk for 8 hours. Go and have a coffee. Go and meet somebody in their office. Offer to meet somebody in the lobby. Go have a meeting in a boardroom. I'm lucky we've got a sort of almost like a living room area, and that's where we have a lot of our meetings. And it's nice to mingle with humans. It's nice to get away from the emails and the pace that emails dictate. You have to force yourself to do that, however, but it is welcome. Certainly, as somebody with a very high caliber team, it's something I welcome. I want to talk about LinkedIn. So certainly for those of you on the call that know me, and I know there's a couple, I'm a big LinkedIn user. That is something that I use to connect with individuals that COVID has sort of drawn me away from. People I maybe used to see a lot of the time, but now because of life, because of challenges, family, travel with work, or whatever the case may be, I use LinkedIn to let people know of a tool, of an event I'm attending, of a product that I'm selling, of a carrier who has supported me, but it's work driven. LinkedIn is not Facebook. And I would give that piece of advice to everybody. Separate LinkedIn from Facebook. And I think one of the big things that I always get a bit of a chuckle at is people who make a post. This is not intended to be a Facebook post where you've just done that. Keep it professional, keep it punchy, and let people know what you can do so that you're using LinkedIn as a setup to go and meet people. So that would be number one. Now it's industry events versus internal meetings. And this one to me is quite simple. And Candice talked about this, and I know Rebecca's going to talk about this in time management. You do not have time to do everything. You do not have time to go to every single event, and nor is that going to be a productive use of your time. I'm at a point in my career now I could be out every night, but I've got a wife, I've got a daughter. I like to go to the gym. I like Korean television shows. I like to do other things. So I pick and choose based on what I want to achieve, based on what's necessary for my job, or simply what I think I'll enjoy. It's nice to go and meet, a shameless plug, but Rebecca's firm did a very nice meet and greet 10 days ago. And it's one of the good ones because it is just a nice event to go to. Went for an hour, got to talk to Rebecca. We joked that we'd see each other on this call, and off I went. Careers can end at a social event. They're never made. So again, maintain an air of professionalism. You'll be remembered for that. My dad was a broker for 43 years and gave me 3 pieces of advice. Have a great handshake, dress well, and be on time. So I've tried to do that. Maybe the dress well is questionable. I like my tweed and my 3-piece suits, but be on time and then take that away. If you meet someone at an event and you say, hey, I'm going to call you on Monday, make a point of calling them on Monday. If they know you for nothing else than being somebody who follows through on what you've said you'll do, it makes a lasting impression. Internally is slightly different because you can be very drained, particularly when you're working from home. When people know you're working from home, they'll assume that you've got time for everything. Set an agenda, set your own time. I know, Rebecca, you're going to talk about time management, but don't go back to back to back to back to back. I fell into that trap. My team will tell you now I'm really pushing back hard on that. You need everything from a breath of fresh air to eat a meal, to have a cup of coffee, a bio break, or simply just get the work done that the meetings have led you to believe. But critically as well, make an internal meeting fun once in a while. We have a meeting on my team, I think once every 2 or 3 weeks. No work talk, cameras on, everybody must have a cup of coffee, and we simply, what's going on with everybody? Everybody needs that break away from work, and you will actually become more productive. Slow down to speed up. All right, so what about intentional connections? So again, internal and external, you want to create a purpose for connecting. You want to talk about, on an internal meeting, why are you inviting someone on a call? Why are they inviting you on a call? Make sure you know what the meeting's about. It also helps you not to worry about what that call might be about. Keep a time that is right for everybody. I have a very bad habit of being a very early morning individual. So I'm cognizant of that, and I don't bring people into my bad habits. So be aware of what the other people might have from their availability, and make it a discussion. Make any internal call be a discussion versus a lecture. I'm very excited to get the Q&A from this at the end, but nobody really needs to hear my Scottish accent for more than 10 or 12 minutes, which is what I'm going to try and do. And ask the quiet ones questions. If you're in a call with 5 people and 4 people are talking, guarantee you that 5th person has something really, really important to say. And don't be afraid to say, yeah, Livia, I've heard too much from you. Rebecca, you've been very quiet. What do you think? Bring people in because it shows you are paying attention to them. Externally, a bit different. Who and why is the main question. Why do you want to have a call with them? And why are you arranging a hybrid type call instead of an in-person meeting? Why are you asking them for a coffee instead of a hybrid type Teams call? I'm not a Teams guy. I like humans, as somebody once said to me, Andrew, you really like humans. Well, I do. But if I need to have a Teams call, it might be I only need 15 minutes. I never said an hour. I've moved to 45 minutes, and I always say at the outset, this will only take 10 or 15 minutes of your time. It means everybody relaxes, and it can become a little bit more of a social, small talk type of meeting. And believe it or not, you will achieve a lot if you're having a nice conversation. On Teams, this one's kind of funny. Everyone will have seen TikTok, Instagram, YouTube go viral. You still have to dress appropriately for a Teams call. And don't stand up when you're wearing your bright pink rugby shorts underneath your suit and tie, like I may or may not have done on a call. It does count for something. You will be remembered in a positive way for not being remembered in a funny way. So again, dress as if you're meeting that person for a cup of coffee. But, and I want to talk about this one, leveraging video is not something that I would always encourage. And I'm lucky or unlucky to have a couple of team members that have joined this call simply to make fun of me, I think. They give me a bad time when I don't turn my video camera on, and I do that very, very deliberately. I do it so that the conversation is about them. I'm not being distracted by a computer screen. I'm not being distracted by emails. I want it to be about them, so I turn the camera off. So we're simply having a phone conversation. And again, we talk about phones, we talk about, Teams and video chats. The phone is still pretty good too, those phones are not just for YouTube and texting, as I tell my daughter. You can call people. On a video day where you want the video on, explain why you want it on. You need to share screen. I've got something to share with you. Or like I do on my Teams calls, I just don't want it to be about work. I'm threatening of having a hoodie day where we're all in hoodies for no other reason than just to show that we've got a side. So separate the two. Lastly, and quite briefly, because I think I'm going to talk about this, or Rebecca rather is going to talk about this, is what are the challenges for maintaining the points of connection you've made during a hybrid environment? The first one is time management. All I will say with time management, knowing that Rebecca is going to talk about that, is take an hour once a week, block that hour off and make it for you to follow up with people you've met, schedule meetings during that week or the next, leave somebody a voicemail, make a call, and check in on people. I'm a big mental health believer, and it's okay to not be okay. Sometimes a phone call just to say, it's been a crazy week, it's already Thursday afternoon, how's yours been, makes the world of difference, and you build a long-lasting connection with somebody. Remember that humans are nice. It's okay to make that connection. Don't hide behind a desk all the time. I've said it before. And we're all terrified about AI. We're all threatened by AI. AI cannot shake a hand. AI cannot look you in the eye. AI cannot say, hey, Livia, how's things? How's that name change working out for you? How's KW? How's your daughter? These are things that help you develop a connection so that when business comes along or when you need that connection for a non-personal relationship, they remember you for being a nice human. The other weird thing is when you're in person, the technology doesn't freeze. Unless you're a very nervous individual, you won't freeze up and you won't have the connection issues that we typically have. You won't have the door opening behind you or the dog barking, get into that thing. The last thing I'll leave you with is probably the most important one. The connections you make last a lifetime. I was lucky enough in 2002, I moved to Toronto in 2004. And I was a class of 16, a cohort of 16 individuals. I still maintain points of contact with all 15 of those individuals. We're all still in the industry or we're in different industries, but one of them may be a lawyer that I've lent on in the past when I've been dealing with some legal issues. One is a union rep, one is an investment advisor. So I've got these types of things. You might not be in the same industry, but you'll still need those connections and they wouldn't be made if you hid behind the desk. So Livia, hopefully that's what you were looking for me, and I apologize for droning on.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great. I think you guys can tell why we invited Andrew today. He is nothing short of entertaining and a great speaker. I am definitely taking away, or it was a nice reminder, the making lasting impressions point, right? And I've heard this before from you. Events do not make careers, but they can break careers. Keep that in mind. It's the small things, right? About being in person that make the lasting impression, being on time, like Andrew said, following through on what you said that you would do, and just showing up, right? Being there intentionally for any in-person or online meetings. So our last speaker today, certainly not least, is Rebecca. Rebecca is the Senior Vice President on Ontario and Atlantic Region Leader at Liberty Mutual Canada. Since joining the company in 2000 as a casualty underwriter, Rebecca has taken on progressively senior roles and now leads a team of underwriters and managers both in Toronto and Halifax, overseeing a sizable property and casualty portfolio of business. Recognized for her leadership and impact in the industry, Rebecca was named one of Insurance Business Canada's elite women in 2022. She's an active member of Liberty's senior leadership team and a committed champion of corporate culture, employee engagement, and inclusion. She served as the executive sponsor of the Employee Engagement Committee and was a tri-chair of Liberty's first Women in Allies Network in Canada. She was also a contributor to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, supporting initiatives ranging from educational programming to sponsorship and community partnerships. Beyond her corporate role, Rebecca is deeply engaged in the insurance and nonprofit community. She continues to hold board positions at Empowerment Squared and has held multiple leadership roles with the Property Casualty Underwriters Club, the PCUC, including as president. She holds a Bachelor of Arts from McMaster University, the FCAP's designation from the Insurance Institute, and additional certifications in governance and risk management. So over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks very much, Olivia, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to meet with everyone today. Definitely a tough act to follow, following Candice and Andrew, but I'll do my best. So yeah, I'm here today to speak to you guys about productivity and professional presence, and what I've kind of coined as that kind of making each day count. And maybe we'll head on to the next slide. So if I think of just the productivity thing in general, really it comes down to maximizing time. And to me, just given, I guess, the extended time that I've spent in the insurance industry and I guess the point I am in life, I think time is our most precious asset that we have. And so figuring out how to use that time to its best, I think really goes a long way. So when I thought about this question as far as maximizing time, I really looked at it from, I guess, different perspectives as far as some questions. So if I think of what and why, as far as maximizing time, I actually pulled up the Eisenhower decision matrix here. And I was introduced to this a while back, and I actually love the idea. And I think is mentioned earlier, the fact that there are so many things to do in one's life that you're not going to be able to do everything. So you really do need to figure out where you're going to spend that precious time you have and where you're not going to. So this method in particular takes a look at, if you take a look at the top, along the top, you've got basically a running spectrum of urgency. So something that's urgent or not urgent. And then if you follow along the left-hand side here, you're also looking at an importance degree here as well. So this, if you kind of put the boxes together. I'll go through a couple examples here, but so something is not important and not urgent. So you're not even going to spend any time on that one. That's an easy decision there. If it's not important, but it is urgent, then maybe there's an opportunity to delegate. And depending on what role you're in, that may or may not be a possibility as far as moving that on to someone else to take a look at handling something on your behalf. Where should you be spending your time? On the urgent and important items. That's a kind of do it now, kind of let's find a way to work that into your schedule, likely for that day or somewhere in the short term basis. And then looking at if it's less urgent but still very important, that's when we're looking to find some time in the schedule, box that in, and be able to make sure that it gets accomplished at some point in the near future. So this is one method that you can use, and there are other kind of opportunities as well, but this one really spoke to me, so I'm hoping it's useful to you as well. If we head on to the next slide, then I also wanted to talk about time management from a kind of a when and a who perspective. So I think as we're looking at time, to me, from a one perspective, this all comes down to managing your calendar. And this is something I would say that I've probably improved a bit over the years. And this looks in many forms. So I used to use this only for my meetings and really just I'm in a position right now where my schedules are pretty packed with meetings, unfortunately. So it was then became a question of how do I find time to actually do the work for the meetings or the outcomes from the meetings? How do I find some time to fit that into my calendar? And I quickly learned that I need to actually book time in my calendar for me to do my work as well. And so that became kind of the second item on here. It was mentioned earlier the huge importance from a self-reflection perspective. So it's one thing to kind of go through all the things that need to be done, do your work, and participate in meetings and everything. But if you're not taking some time to actually stop, take a deep breath and just inhale and think about what it is that you've accomplished, what it is that maybe has worked well and what hasn't worked well, and how you might do things differently, and how you're progressing towards your any goals that you have in mind. I think making sure that you book time in your calendar for this purpose is so important, and it's such an important part of life, I would say, both personally as well as professionally. Um, if we look at the question of who, to me, this comes down to whether this is going to be something that you can do individually or whether this is something that's more of a team effort. And there are different factors that contribute to determining which bucket this falls into. Sometimes it's as simple as looking at time, and is this something that maybe it's really not a lot of time to work on, and so maybe it's something that you have to, work on your own or a very small group that's going to dictate the size of how much time you have to book into other people's schedules. I also love the idea of looking at different perspectives. And I've been in the people management position for many years. And one of my favorite things, I do very much love people, but I love the different perspectives that we all bring. And it's the idea that we all have different backgrounds and different experiences that we've lived through, different maybe places that we've grown up, or different schools that we've gone to, different individuals we've lived with through it, our experiences. And so we all come with just different ideas. And I love that. I've often said to my group that I work with that I would much rather have someone who's comfortable disagreeing with my comments on something, but gives me something different to consider. And rather than us sitting in the same room and really just bobbing our heads and agreeing with everything that everyone says. So I think there's a great opportunity if for solving for you can bring to, and that could be different perspective within your organization, different departments, or could be individuals potentially, depending on the situation, potentially colleagues outside of the organization as well. Another thing I wanted to mention, and again, this is touched upon earlier, but definitely the opportunity when you're doing something, solving for something, really the relationship building opportunity that comes out of that. So, sitting down, working through something together definitely builds connections and perspective between different individuals. And I think there's a great opportunity there. And so I love that part of it. The other thing I wanted to mention is really the coaching moment, and whether you are the coacher or the coachee. I think this is something great to consider, because again, if it's bringing someone into this into a project basis that maybe hasn't had that exposure before, but you think they can learn from that and be able to give them a new skill to build upon, I think that goes a long way. Or maybe you're that individual and you want to put your hand up to be participating in something. I think that has many kind of side benefits in addition to solving for whatever you're working on. If we go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about the where and the how. So, and this goes back to the virtual world that we live in. I might even start by just saying that I live in the Hamilton area and work downtown Toronto. So sometimes I do stop and think, wow, I used to come in 5 days a week way back during the day. And now I too fall in the same bucket as it looks like everybody else on the call, which is 2 to 3 days a week. And I love that versatility. But I think it poses an interesting question as far as when is it important to meet someone in real life and when does it make sense to do something virtually. And of course, there are many variations in between there. So we talked a little bit about using whether it's Teams or Slack or some other kind of virtual kind of conversations, or maybe picking up the phone. But if I look at really the differentiation between the meeting in person, so meeting in real life, to me that is generally my preference, particularly if it's something that's a little bit more personal. Any kind of constructive feedback is much better to give in person. If it's something where, there's a lot of emotions kind of attached to it, I definitely think there's a much better reason to do it in person. I think if you're looking to build a relationship with the individual, definitely, if you can do that in person, that goes much further than doing it virtually. If it's collaboration, sometimes that as well, much easier to be done in person. I also think there's an element here, and it sounds a little corporate-y, but I love the idea of both your personal and corporate branding. So I think, your personal branding, I think, is really working within your organization and showing them that you're, a part of something, and just having that visibility, that personal connection does go a long way. It's basically an area where you can kind of shine and just show what you're made of, and give that input into the project that you're working on. I also think from a corporate branding perspective, this goes a long way. And I often tell my group that the number one thing that you can do to achieve results is really knowing the people that you're working with. So, getting out and meeting our customers, and that could be either on the broker or the client perspective. And I highly encourage that, because then you're going to know what the real needs are of the individual and be able to connect in a personal way. From a virtual perspective, or if you're working from home, I find that's actually very useful as well. I personally love doing more focused or more complex individual work when I'm working at home. So that just gives me a little bit less distractions, less things going on in my my home environment. Maybe yours as well, but I'm not sure. And then if there's any private conversations that perhaps need to be held, sometimes those, again, can be easier to navigate if you're working from home, depending on your office and environment. I'm, as of this point in time, managing a group of individuals both in Toronto as well as in Halifax. So there are, obviously I'm not always out in Halifax. So there are many times where we have to meet virtually when I would love to meet in real life. So, it's finding the right balance between the two of them. The other thing I wanted to mention was the how part to things. So I already mentioned a little bit about calendars and kind of setting up some time that way. I think from a productivity perspective, I personally love the short focus sprints. And maybe this is a little bit of bringing in the fact that I do love athletics as well. And I love the whole idea of doing intervals. And so this is the idea of being able to just tell myself, okay, I'm going to do, and whether it's, I've got a couple of references here. So whether it's doing, 25-minute sprints, or doing, 10, 50-minute sprints, or whatever kind of combination kind of works well for you. I actually do set a timer. So I know that sounds a little bit geeky for everybody, but I will do that, where I'll say, okay, I'm going to work on this for, maybe it's half an hour or an hour, and I'll set my timer and just know, okay, I'm going to block everything out, and this is going to be my uber focus for that period of time to push through something. That really seems to work for me anyway. I do also love the idea of batching similar tasks together. So I've got some examples here. So whether phone calls, just making a bunch of calls, one after another to get those checked off my list, whether it's spending time going through emails, if it's doing hard analysis work and really just head down kind of doing some of that complex work, or maybe it's doing creative stuff. And I do find if you put things into somewhat buckets, your brain kind of is used to kind of working it in one way, and really just not having to do that shift back and forth. So I feel like that goes a long way. We mentioned a tiny bit about the self-reflection. So I do love the idea of an end of day 5-minute review. And really, this is a little bit of a check-in with myself as far as just, hey, what did I get done today? What didn't I get done today? And again, those key learnings is another element to me. And so that's kind of some tips I use. If we head on to the next slide. So this is really looking at maximizing your environment. And as I started to go through this and I was thinking more in office versus at home, I found there's a lot of similarity. And so I kind of grouped it all together. So I was looking at really having a dedicated zone to do your work. So whether you're in the office and whether you have a dedicated desk, or in our office, we do a lot of hoteling as well. So you may not have the desk all the time. If you're at home, I think making sure that that's even more important to have a dedicated space to be able to do your work. I love the idea of making sure that it's an area that it's, kind of clean, inviting, and calm. And to me, it's the idea that you're not coming into a crazy space that already has you stressed just sitting down, but you come to a space where you've got some degree of just calmness and focus to start your day goes a long way. And then I think there is an element of transitioning. So maybe you had, chaotic, whether commute to work or just whatever dealing with, whether home issues or whatever. I do think it's worth taking a few minutes, maybe a 5 minute kind of start and a 5 minute end to kind of start the day. So really just clearing the mind. Maybe it's taking a few deep breaths, checking in your calendar, seeing what you have set up for the day. Maybe it's refocusing and knowing what those top 3 things are that you're going to accomplish for that day. And then the same thing at the end of the day, which I mentioned earlier, kind of that 5 minute shutdown. And I do love the idea of knowing then, okay, sure, there are going to be some things that are going to percolate in your mind and continue working, but the idea to be able to turn things off and be able to focus on the other part of your life as well. Communication and boundaries. I do think it's important to set work hours for you. Do not disturb kind of signals. So whether it's a closed door, I'm in my office here, I've got the door closed so that people are not going to interrupt me, whether you use a sign maybe at home or whether it's, a sign is having the headphones on, but just having that clearly set out. And turning off any non-essential notifications. We're very much in an electronic world these days, so I think if you can have less notifications kind of beeping at you constantly, I think that'll give you that ability to focus a lot better. And also looking at times to check into emails. So ideally kind of 2 to 4 scheduled times or batches throughout the day to be able to do that, so you're not just constantly being interrupted your thought process when you're seeing stuff come in. Organization, I really mentioned the calendar blocks already, and I do think that deep kind of focused time work, building time in definitely for the relationship building. We talked a little bit about that earlier as well, and then that self-reflection. I also think very important to make sure that you've got some kind of organization from a file perspective, and planning. I think planning prep work. So that's something else that I've built into my calendar. If I've got a big meeting or something coming up, giving myself that time to get in the right headspace ahead of time, prepare so that I approach things from the right headspace. And the last thing I put here too is really the importance of that recharging element, moving around and having fun. I think we all work very, very hard. I also do want to remember that you see a picture of person, you see the work person, but you don't know what else they're dealing with from a personal perspective. Outside of that, everybody's dealing with a lot in their lives, and so we definitely need to take time to get away from the stress of work, have a recharge time. Moving around goes a long way. So if you're lucky to have the desks that move up or down, or go for a walk, sometimes I'll even schedule meetings with some of my colleagues and have it as a walking meeting. So it's something that we're just talking, and we'll take a walk whether around the office or go outside and do a lap around the block or whatever. I think there's a lot of value to that. And then have fun. You know what? It's life is short, and I think there's lots of amazing people in this industry. Connect where you can. There's so many people that can brighten your days, and there's some great suggestions earlier of just checking in on people and making sure that everyone's doing well. So anyway, so hopefully that's of some value to you. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm going to pass it over to I think Marina or Olivia.
I will speak for just a minute before Marina starts with the questions. I do want to say, Rebecca, I do time myself, so I really hope that it's not seen as geeky.
Good.
It is great. If you guys don't know the Pomodoro strategy, look into it. There are plenty of apps out there, and it's a great strategy to focus and block your time. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And I'm definitely writing down the Eisenhower decision matrix. Didn't know that one. So I'm going to use it and want to share it with a lot of people because I think it's great. Okay, so over to you, Marina, for our questions, and then we'll close out the webinar.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say I really enjoyed everyone's perspectives, and I did make quite a few notes. So I can definitely bring it into my personal life and my work balance life. So thank you everyone so much. Please submit any questions you have now. We did receive some on the registration form, so thank you for that. I will start with one and I will pass it to Candace. Um, for newcomers to the industry or for those mentoring young professionals, could you give some guidance or tips on how to manage workload, prioritizing work, and managing timelines, as this could be difficult to figure out when you join the workforce? There might be some reiterating of the presentation, but I totally think that is okay. So Candace, what do you think?
I think if you're coming in as a new person, like your number one job is learning. You're not just learning like what to do, but like learning about how to work effectively. And so I would say you said prioritization. I think asking questions like you don't automatically know what is urgent, and you may not be able to do the matrix at the beginning because you're not sure how urgent something is. And so really clarifying for yourself and asking questions about deadlines and urgency and understanding the why behind what it is you're doing so you can understand more so what the importance is, what it means. So for example, in claims, like you have to call this person back. You're calling them back because they had a car accident. Like that's going to be a more urgent and a conversation that you need to prepare for. Um, and so you lean on your training, you lean on your team, and you have to be prepared and not just do actions because you will essentially waste your energy. I think that was that your question, like how do you prioritize? I think it's a skill
Yep.
that you learn. And so if you
Mhm.
focus at the beginning on learning what works for you and how you best work and mix that with what you're learning and what your role is, I think the
Mhm.
combination over time, you just continually improve.
Awesome. Yep, that completely makes sense. I'm keeping an eye on the time. We have a few minutes left, but I will pose this question to all three of you. Maybe just like a spitfire response for this one. If you could give one piece of advice to help professionals truly thrive in a hybrid world, what would it be? I'll start with you, Andrew.
Own it. Don't use it as an excuse. Tell people where you are. Tell them when you're going to be in. I send an email every Sunday night to say that here are the days I'm going to be in the office in the week. I own it. I don't use it as a crutch.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll pass it to you, Rebecca.
Mine may be somewhat similar, but I love the idea of just making each day count. You know what? Like really showing up each day and making it worthwhile and effective.
Awesome. And Candace?
Uh, Back to being present. So it's we all have the same idea here. Is basically like show up, be present, take in everything. Um, yeah, you will be noticed. You notice when someone is not present, that is for sure, and you notice when someone is engaged and present.
Absolutely. And one piece I took from all your conversations is the boundaries, setting up the boundaries to stay focused and mental health. And I will end it with that. We have 1 minute left. So, Olivia, I know you want to do a conclusion. So I'll pass it over to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for being on today's call, for registering, and thank you so much to our speakers who took the time to share your knowledge and your time in the industry with all of us. If you guys don't know about the Rising Risk Professionals Network, you can find information on LinkedIn. There are plenty of events happening, and a lot of them are just free events that you can just sign up for, like this webinar. Okay. Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.